Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Leaders Uncut. And today it is my great pleasure to have with us Tatyana Mamut, who is the founder and CEO of Wayfound. Hello, Tatyana. How are you doing today?
Hello, Catherine. Good to see you.
I know, likewise. I'm so happy to have you here on the show. You are doing something just extraordinary with Wayfound. When you explain to me how you're working with agents, AI agent, you're really at the forefront of generative AI, and it is fascinating to me. So maybe we can start by you giving us a little bit of a background on who you are, where you're coming from, and then what you are doing with Wayfound.
Sure. So the best way to really understand my background is I am a child of a multi-generational engineering family. So my mother's an engineer, my father's an engineer, my grandmother's an engineer, my aunt's an engineer, my brother's an engineer. And I was really more fascinated by social systems than engineering. But I always had, engineering as part of my, part of my family life, part of my environment. And so I studied anthropology. I studied social systems. First, I studied economics because I wanted to understand how humans work in the economy and modeling very large social systems, and through mathematical formulas was something that my engineering I think oriented brain loved to do. Unfortunately, it turns out that most economic models are wrong. And I'm not sure why people don't realize this who work in
Wow. Yeah.
economics, but most economic predictions we know are essentially, random chance, right? Some of them are right, some of them are wrong. And so, when you are kind of working and you're trying to model something and you realize you're wrong a lot, you start to look for other, ways of understanding what's going on. So I went to anthropology. I got a PhD in anthropology to understand how cultures form and, more importantly, how they change. And this really brought me into the landscape of thinking about the future a lot, because all humans are oriented toward the future. What makes us really different as humans, I believe, than other animals, is that we are constantly thinking about how to shape a future which is different than our present. And this is what is uniquely human. In all of, the entire animal kingdom, animals do pretty much all the same things that humans do in terms of reproduction and societies and tool use and all the things that we used to think made us different as humans. Animals do as well. The one thing that we really do differently is that we orient our action toward achieving a different future. So this really took me into the field of creating new things, right? Innovating, really starting to understand what is it that creates innovation for society. So I went to work at IDEO. I was IDEO's first PhD anthropologist on staff. And I led very large global product design projects, like for companies like Visa and Genentech and Bridgewater Associates and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, understanding how to create products that would land in new markets and that would reshape the human future.
That is just incredible. I'm just going to stop you there because, wow, first of all, wow, that's just what an incredible background. But you are right. We are constantly thinking about the future, but I think we are thinking about the future now with a sense of urgency more than ever before. Do you see that?
Absolutely. Well, there are a lot of things that have been leading up to kind of a moment in time. One of the things that I really understood as I studied anthropology is that societies change very slowly and then very quickly and all at once. So when you study, the transformation of societies and cultures over thousands of years, which anthropologists do, you realize that there are moments, like years or a specific decade, in which everything changes. The future collapses. So this is called, kind of in my dissertation work, a collapse of the known future. So humans have a certain orientation of, they have a narrative of what the future is going to be like. And then in these moments, in these years, sometimes it's like 1 year, where like the future collapses and people have to completely reimagine their lives. Yeah. Sometimes it happens over a decade, but there are very, things kind of feel known for, centuries. And then all of a sudden, boom, it collapses and people have to remake it. And we are at that moment.
Oh,
that is
100%.
why people are so obsessed about the future right now.
I completely understand that. There's that, and it's interesting. We don't exactly understand it, but we feel it, and it's shared by everyone. As entrepreneurs, leaders understand the need to start incorporating those new technologies. However, they're not sure how to approach this, right?
That's right, because most of them don't have this larger perspective on humanity, right? Those who have not studied how cultures actually change are kind of flying blind or like making it up as they go along. But those of us who've studied multiple collapses of the known future and how humans reoriented themselves and what it takes to recraft an economy, recraft a society when everything changes, when new technologies emerge, when new people come in, or there are massive invasions or by the way, massive climate change. This is not the first time humanity has seen it.
Right.
Like this is like a small version of what happened during the Ice Age. Like when the Ice Age...
It's so accurate. I love that you address this, because in fact, if you can maybe expand on that concept, because I think it's very important.
Yeah, I mean, people are freaking out because they don't have this long trajectory of history, right? People are freaking out about climate change, but humans have lived through massive climate change before. The Ice Age was a much larger climate change a scenario than what we're experiencing right now. And guess what? Humans got through it. Yes, there was mass extinction, right? The woolly mammoths went extinct and a lot of other species went extinct.
Yeah.
That's what happens when climate change happens, but we've been through it before. The Middle East used to be green and lush and tropical. It's now sand. Again, there was massive climate change again a few thousand years ago. And so when you have that perspective of humans have seen this before and we have gone through it, it's not like I don't care about climate change, but you just don't have the type of apocalyptic, oh my God, the sky is falling kind of perspective. You're actually able to step back, understand what's happening, and move forward with the right perspectives, and then create the right tools to help humanity move forward.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this is where you come in. This is when we need people like you to really help businesses find their way with the latest AI technology so that they can start incorporating them in a way that makes sense for them, because it can be very intimidating. It also can be very expensive if you don't have the right strategy and the right tools, right?
That's exactly right. And again, if you have business leaders who are kind of, dealing with both a workforce and investors and customers who are pulling them in different directions and and they don't have, any perspective or the tools with the perspective of how to navigate this transition. Because again, this transition is one of many other transitions that we've gone through. So when you have the tools, that's when you can feel more confident. You can feel like you can trust in this transition, this technological transition, which is, forcing economic and social and workplace transitions. Then you got the tools. And so that is what I've been dedicated now to building myself through this perspective of anthropology, as well as my background in tech. So one of the things I didn't mention is after IDEO, I went and became an executive at Salesforce in the product team. So, and I led the Lightning Experience redesign for Salesforce. Then I went and helped build the IoT cloud, the Internet of Things cloud. Then I went to Amazon and helped build Honeycode, which was the first no-code app building platform for AWS. And then went on to be chief product officer at Nextdoor and then lead a new business unit at Pendo. So I've had a long career in technology. So bringing these two perspectives now together of how do you actually build the technology tools to help business leaders navigate through this murky and unknown, kind of environment where everything is changing all at once. it really feels like that was what I was put on planet Earth to do, honestly. Really.
It is obvious. My God, I mean, you have experience with major companies out there. Let's dive into what you're offering here with Wayfound, because I think it's very important for people to understand that. I think what's going to impact what people do every day is going to impact the experiences their own customers are going to have. It also will impact the work productivity, and it also will be a huge time saver. So can you explain in details how everything works with AI agents and the process that companies would have to go through in order to implement your technology?
Sure. So everybody's talking about AI agents right now, right? So people started talking about AI agents in 2024. A lot of companies started experimenting with AI agents in 2024, started building them. In many cases, they were taking known workflows and trying to automate them with LLMs. A great paper by Anthropic just came out a few weeks ago, and I actually have a LinkedIn post kind of summarizing it. And what they really point out is like, hey, it's great that people have started automating their workflows with AI agents, but that's not really what AI agents are and not what they're really great at. So AI agents are kind of like human workers that can do known jobs really, really well. And that does not mean, and remember, they're knowledge workers. Right. So if you put knowledge workers on an assembly line, you can do that, right? And have them do little pieces and little tasks and tell them exactly what to do at every moment in time. That doesn't work great. That's not how we organize our knowledge work. And so when you put AI agents or string together LLM-based prompt into kind of a known workflow with very strong conditional logic, that's kind of what you're doing. You're kind of putting knowledge work into an assembly line. And so you're doing a couple of things. One is you're decreasing the creativity that's involved in knowledge work. And you don't want to do that. The advantage of having generative AI doing a lot of this work is that it is pretty creative, right? If you've used ChatGPT for writing or any of the art, generative AI products, artistic generative AI products, you know that they're pretty creative, like within certain boundaries. So you want to maintain that creativity. You want to allow the generative AI to do what it does best and generate. That's part of the agency piece, right? The agency piece means that you actually give the system great prompts, great directions, almost like you're training a new intern. And then you're letting that intern that you believe is really smart, because remember, these interns now are pushing like 150 IQ, depending on which model you build on. So you're letting these really smart interns then generate, new solutions within their training. Okay. So that is where it gets really tricky now. What gets really tricky is when you give these, software, programs, right? These pieces of software, this agency, this ability to make some decisions and have some creativity and come up with great solutions, understand what's the next best step, and as opposed to just programming through conditional logic what the next best step is. You need to monitor them very closely. That monitoring we found over the last year, one of the reasons that a lot of companies are not deploying their AI agents is because they're still in the testing phase. These agents are stuck for months in testing. And typically what this looks like is that there is a team of 2 engineers and 2 data scientists and 1 business owner or product leader. And what they do is the data scientist samples the transcripts, the session recordings. They look for the patterns of when the agent did something right and did something wrong. Then they sort of analyze that information. They turn it into some business insights. They pass it to the business owner. That business owner then works with the data scientist to say this is right or this is wrong. Then they go back to the engineer. Then the engineers do 2 things. One engineer that's responsible for maintaining the agent, right, has to change the prompts, right, do the prompt engineering. The other one writes some evals, right, so that it's on now. They've identified what's wrong. So they write some evals for ongoing monitoring, and then they build some sort of UI so that the data scientists can then monitor it without having the engineers just translate log files. This is very time consuming and expensive.
Oh, it is, absolutely. My God.
So Wayfound is the solution to this. So what we've done is there are certain things that we know about agents. What we know about agents is that they have training data, they have knowledge, right? So we've written basically a set of evals, both through deterministic, software, as well as through generative AI, through more of the LLM-based analysis, to understand where are their knowledge gaps, where is the training incomplete, where does the training need to be augmented. They also, we know, make tool calls, right, and action calls, and they pull information and they trigger different processes. So we monitor. We've created a system, again, through deterministic and probabilistic software, to understand when are those tool calls working well, when are they failing, when are they making good decisions to call on tools, when are they making bad decisions. And then you also have the interaction with the human. So if you have an agent that's deployed with your employees or your customers, there's usually some feedback mechanism, or you can just read the sentiment, right, in that interaction. And so we have those evals built in. We also are testing them about how well they're adhering and complying to their directives. And so we've got all that out of the box. Instead of data scientists pulling transcripts, sampling them, trying to figure out, trying to read their own, and then make up their own evals, we kind of like automated all of that. And then we have an AI manager. That takes the place of your data scientist. And the AI manager is another AI model that's optimized to read every single session recording. So when you sample, of course, a human can't read every single thing that's happening with an agent, especially if there are hundreds of interactions a day. Right? Our manager can, right? Our AI manager, which is an AI agent itself that's been built and optimized, and we started working on this AI manager a year ago. So we've got a lot of expertise on what it takes to build this thing. So this AI manager reads every single session recording, and it sends you alerts every time something goes wrong.
Wow, I mean, that's just unbelievable. I mean, you're saving so much money because you don't have to hire so many people. And then everything is optimized and very thorough because it goes into a lot of details, obviously, here. So question for you, you're talking about LLM technologies. I'm sure a lot of people don't know what that is. Can you explain what that is?
Sure, they're large language models. So back to anthropology. The way that humans understand the world is through language. That's why linguistic anthropology is one of the main 4 fields of anthropology. My dissertation advisor actually was a linguistic anthropologist. So I know a lot about how human minds actually make sense of the world through language, right? And through symbolic understandings, in terms of, what are the relationships in society, in culture, in the world. And so large language models were a huge breakthrough in the field of software because they are built on neural networks. So instead of programming deterministically, like a human figuring out what to do and programming it into a computer in kind of a linear fashion, neural networks simulate essentially the connections in the brain. And then just like children, you create this sort of like framework of connections in the brain, and then you push a whole bunch of data into it, just like kids, right? When you have a child, you try to expose them to as many good things as you possibly can so that their model of the world becomes a positive one and a creative one, and you give them the tools, right, to understand the world a certain way. And so there's basically, you don't program large language models. You kind of create an architecture that simulates the brain, a neural network, and then you give them some basically evolutionary principles, is how Jeffrey Hinton calls it, right? Principles that help to guide its learning, and then you just give it a whole bunch of text. The reason they're called large language models is because the primary mode in which these things are trained is through language and text, Guess what? Humans, it's the same thing. Most of our learning and understanding is through language and text, even if it's visual or multimodal, we translate it into text many times in our minds. So large language models are just a lot of text and a lot of language to make sense of the world, and then be able to use that, sense making, right? And that reasoning capability now in terms of the latest models to be able to do things in the way that humans did them, even if they weren't pre-programmed into the software.
That's very helpful. I think it's important for people to understand that. So when you say we give it a lot of data, is that the client, the people, right? I mean, who is doing this, and so, how much work does that take?
So there are the foundation model companies, and then there are like basically everyone else. So the foundation model companies are folks like Anthropic and OpenAI and Google, Gemini. And there are some also open source models, right? The foundation models like Llama from Meta, Mistral was a big one, although they're kind of fading. And so those foundation models are like the neural networks, right? And the ones that have been given like the basics of like, here's the world, here's how to understand the world. They're fed, billions and billions of data points to really help them understand, and that is called pre-training.
Okay.
Then depending on what the company is doing, they do post-training and then deployment training. So post-training is where a lot of the innovation now is happening. So post-training is like, think about it as like, again, it's just like a human brain. So like, think about your kids, right? So when your kids are born, you read them lots of books and you expose them to lots of things, but most of what they're learning is just sort of like coming in, right? And it's like, they're just making sense of the world themselves based on just like what's coming in. So most of the post training is like all of the internet, like literally all of the internet, right? All the things in the world. Okay. Then the pre-training. The pre-training is that.
Pre-training, yeah.
Then the post-training is like what you do when you get to like school, right? You want to say, okay, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. This is more of what you actually need to understand, how the world works. There's a lot of your RLHF, reinforcement learning through human feedback. And that's sort of like grading and testing and scoring the model, right? And then giving it more data and more information in order to augment what it doesn't know. That's like the model then going to school. That's the post-training.
Got it.
Just to simplify it.
Yeah, no, that's important because so I'm sure people are going to want to know this. So the pre-training, it's all the customization, and you never really end customization. It's ongoing, right? I mean,
so let's go back to this. So then the foundation model companies, they kind of take the model through like high school, okay? Then when you bring, one of these brains, when you build an agent on top of one of these models, what you're essentially doing is you're hiring an intern right out of high school, a very smart intern.
Right.
You now need to train it on your data.
Yeah.
And your business process and what you want it to know.
Understood.
Fine tuning is like sending it to college and having it major in medicine or law, right? There's a lot of these fine tuning companies. So that's like the college education where you might fine tune it for cancer research, right? Specialize it, or you might fine tune it for legal legal briefs or something like that. That's like the fine tuning. Okay. For most things, you don't need to fine tune, actually. You can just basically hire that intern right out of the foundation model company, right from OpenAI or Anthropic or Google. And then, and then it's been taught the basic things that it needs to know, but now you're responsible for training it and giving it a knowledge base and basically helping it understand what is it supposed to be doing and kind of creating the system for how to make it work inside your company.
Got it. So I mean, there's a lot. It seems very high tech, and I know this can be intimidating, right, for anyone. Oh my God, all these words or tools I've never heard before. So what I'd like you to address, I think it's very important, is how long does it take to have a system that has all the training it needs to have in order to serve you, Mr. Business Leader or Mrs. Entrepreneur, to optimize what you're doing? How long does it take, and is that expensive?
The pre-training is extraordinarily expensive, right? This is why the foundation model companies have raised billions and billions of dollars.
Right.
It's because it is extraordinarily expensive. Remember, you're giving it all of like the information from the internet, then you're doing all the post training, which is extraordinarily also expensive. I do know these companies have teams around the world to ensure that the post training is not biased toward the United States or California. So then you have to think about, how do you kind of take bias out of the post training, out of the RLHF methodology, right? They have this democratic inputs to AI teams where, you know, you make sure that the way that it's trained, right? You want to make sure that the school that it goes to, right, is unbiased, is representative of the world.
Yeah.
It's extraordinarily expensive and extraordinarily time consuming to do that well. So a lot of companies in 2023 started by trying to build their own models, the big enterprises, and most of them gave up when they realized how difficult and expensive this really was. So JP Morgan Chase has gone all in with OpenAI, in part because they realized, right, like to build a foundation model on their own is just never going to be worth it, versus taking one of the big foundation models, and then building on top of it, right? Now, how you build on top of it, again, if you're doing fine tuning, that is also quite expensive. Because you're changing the model weights and you're optimizing it. Again, this is like you're specializing the model in a particular area. So you need both enough data and enough training and enough RLHF and supervision to ensure that that model is actually then, kind of changed to be great for that very specific use case. That is quite expensive.
Yeah.
However, if you're hiring an intern and you want it to just be a good, worker that knows about your business process, that can be done really cheaply now. So, building an agent, like an engineer in a day can build an agent with OpenAI's tools, Anthropic's tools, Google's tools. Amazon now has, a model and tools to do it. Microsoft has had their agent building framework for, over a year. You can build an AI agent from one of these, well-known, well-established models in a day. The hard part is getting it to work the way that you want and ensuring that you trust it enough to deploy it and put it in front of your customers. Again, it's just like hiring an intern. You can hire an intern from a college, well-known college, in a day.
Yeah. No, I understand. So the power of your tool is bringing all these agents together, make sure they're all integrated, working for you to reach your goals. And that's what I want to understand, because you don't have to have an engineer to be able to use your platform. You showed it to me. It's very user-friendly. It feels like all is in there, really easy to use and leverage as best as you can for your specific needs, right?
That's right. Once the business user, once you have an agent, again, you can build a lot of agents on a lot of different frameworks. Once you have an agent, the hard part is tweaking it and, making sure that you give it the right feedback and making sure you monitor it and you can trust it and you can deploy it. So we've created a tool for business users.
Yeah.
So for people who are the business owners and the product managers, to be able to really understand how is their agent working, where does it need improvement. We have suggestions also for how to improve it so that you don't have to be super technical and go into the log files, to like figure out exactly what's going on. And then right from Wayfound, you have like the feedback about here's what it's doing well, here's where it's underperforming, here are some issues that happened, right? And here's how we suggest that you improve this agent in order to get it to meet your goal. And that is really important for the business owners to be able to have, because again, this AI agent that's built on, one of the great foundation models, it's working for you, not necessarily for the engineering team. The engineering team doesn't have the context necessarily to understand if this was a good interaction or this is a bad interaction. And there's just every time you have a game of telephone in a company, things break down.
Right.
So giving the business user the power to really understand what their agents are doing, and then the immediate, next steps for how to fix them is critically important. And our customers have seen, anywhere from, a 600 to, I hate to even, I'm embarrassed to even say this, but 600 to 3,500% improvement in terms of the ROI, decreasing their costs for deploying their agents. And then one of our customers, their plan was to spend 3 months testing their agent to get it to deployment. Using Wayfound, the product team was able to get that down to 2 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Because they weren't playing telephone with the engineers.
Right. That's huge. So let's talk about that. Your customers, are there any specific industries that can leverage your platform more than others? I mean, you cover a wide range of industries, right?
We do cover a wide range of industries. Most of our customers right now are, native tech companies. They're software as a service companies. Most of them at the moment, although we do have some large enterprises in the retail area, as well as consumer packaged goods, two very large enterprises that are building agents. We are talking to their tech teams right now and their product managers, their innovation teams in particular. But most of our companies, because I think a lot of the SaaS companies are first out of the gate to build agents. They were the first ones that really saw the value of deploying faster and cheaper with a tool like Wayfound.
Yeah, no, I can understand. That would make complete sense. Oh my God, I mean, it's so revolutionary what you have here. And this is what I wanted people to understand. You don't have to be a specialist in any type of programming languages, or anybody can utilize your system. This is what I'm trying to say here, right? You don't need to be an expert in AI. You don't have to have a professor in generative AI working with you in order to be able to use your platform. That's what I'm trying to say here, in a difficult way, but right? I mean, that's true. I mean,
right? Catherine, that's exactly right. And again, one of the things about seeing cultural transitions is a lot of times it starts with, experts in something. And then what actually happens is it democratizes, right? People get the tools. So when, people when the automobile started, right, it was very hard to find drivers, right? Driving was like a very expert kind of thing, and you needed to learn. And by the way, to be a driver, you also had to fix the engine. The first cars would break down all the time. So the driver also had to be a mechanic. What happened, and this happens every single time, is that the tools become more user-friendly so that anybody can become a driver. And this is what we've done with Wayfound, right? You do not need to be an AI engineer in order to write good evals for your agents and understand what your agents are doing. You do not have to read log files, and you do not have to read JSON, right? We've created this democratic platform. So just like a Model T Ford, right? You don't have to be a mechanic, right? Because we're going to make the car, and we're going to make the tool more user-friendly for you, as opposed to making you get trained to be an AI expert, right?
And that's very important, because I can imagine people looking at this thinking, there's no way I'm going to be able to do it myself. It's too complicated. I need experts around me. But that's not the case. And that's one message that people need to understand with all these new technologies, and your platform is part of that. It's very user-friendly in a lot of cases, just like ChatGPT. When first ChatGPT came to us, I mean, it was seamless, right? And that's the approach that I want people to think about, because platforms like that are just any type of platform, just like Salesforce. And when someone is used to utilizing a platform like that, it's really easy to use yours. It's the same principle.
Well, thank you. We want to make it easy to use.
Yeah.
I'd love to show it to any of your, your
Yes,
listeners
that
who
would
are
be great.
interested. And so, yeah.
That would be great. So if someone wants to speak with you, what is the best way to reach you, Tatyana?
So website, Wayfound.ai. And then there's a button there for get a demo. And I read all of those requests. So
Wonderful,
if
wonderful.
you have an agent, you're building an agent, you either have deployed it and you want more visibility and you want more efficiency now, or if you have built an agent and you're like, oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to deploy this thing, because they do things that they're not programmed to do, because that's the technology. The technology doesn't always give you the same outcome every single time, like old school software. So if you're not quite sure, like, what's going on, what is this thing doing, how am I ever going to deploy this in the real world, call us. Okay. We'll give you a demo. We'll get you on the platform. It's really easy to onboard your agent into Wayfound. It literally is one line of code that we'll help you implement. Or there are some connections. If you've got an intercom agent, it's super easy to onboard onto Wayfound. There are some places that are easier for integrations. And again, in 20 minutes, you'll have your dashboard, you'll have your agent performance review. You'll be able to actually ask questions like, how many times did the agent, say this word instead of that word? How many times, tell me more about how to improve, the user experience with my agent. Like, how do you think I should do it, right? The manager monitors everything in the agent and is there to really help you get trust and confidence with this technology.
I love it. So everyone, I really encourage you to get in touch with Tatyana here, because sometimes we think it's complicated, but when you have a chance to test the platform yourself, have a quick demo, it changes everything. I mean, that's what it did for me. Sometimes it's hard when it's so abstract, but when you see it and how it works, it's a game changer. So I really encourage all of you to get hold of Tatyana and talk with her and understand with her and look for yourself, look at the platform. It makes a big difference. So thank you again, Tatyana. It was wonderful. I'm so excited with Wayfound. I think you're going to flood the gates here. Everybody's going to want to know and how we can leverage this, because it is game changer. It is how to best utilize those new technologies that use AI and use generative AI and your LLM technologies that I understand now. So that was great that you explained that. So thank you again for speaking with me today, explaining what you do with Wayfound. It was just very informative, very important.
Thank you so much, Catherine. And I'm so appreciative that all of us are here creating the future together. And that's really what it takes, right? To move forward with optimism, and seed into this new world, right? And that's what we're all here doing.
And I agree with you. It will take a collaborative effort, working together and understanding together how we can best embrace the future that is coming our ways at the speed of light.
Exactly.
Thank you again. Thank you everyone for watching. I am sure you enjoyed my conversation here with Tatyana, and please share on your network. That's really important, because I'm trying to reach as many people as possible. This is to share information that can be game changer for someone. And if you help me out spreading the word, it will go much broader than what I can do myself. So thank you again. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It will be greatly appreciated. And we will see you next time.